For today's cup of coffee with Scream, I actually swapped kids. I have oldest kid over here is in the
mediocre commentary
in the first mate's chair today, and
there.
youngest kid is over there in the peanut gallery. He's in the hall fighting the rats. Somebody has to do it. You know, you can't let the rats eat all of the hardtack.
There's Play-Doh down here.
Yeah. So with all this situation, and we're recording this on the evening of June the 5th, 2025, with all the drama that has gone on, and oh my God, the news cycle is just, this is one of those moments in time and history that everybody, they jump on it.
Politics, 255 characters at a time.
Yeah. But it's like, a lot of times people don't, and I don't know if they have the ability sometimes to stop and truly find out the facts behind a situation before typing about it. In fact, it's kind of frowned upon at this point in time to stop and ponder.
Well, that's kind of intentional.
Mm-hmm.
At least as far as the functioning of our government goes. I mean, if the elected representatives aren't reading the things that they're signing into law, the expectation that the citizens would, I think is kind of far-fetched.
So it's like you've got a kingdom of idiots ruled by idiots. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I think, in other words, that the movie Idiocracy was a documentary.
Well, there are people that have claimed that from multiple directions.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's quaint to think that the institutions would survive the degradation of the intellect of the people to that degree.
I don't know if it's the intellect or the morality, and I think that goes hand in hand sometimes, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, a smart evil person can do a lot more damage than a dumb evil person.
Mm-hmm. That is true. But it's most interesting to watch these things transpire. And as far as connecting dots, and for like the two that may not know what's going on, if everybody that listens to us knows what's going on, so I'm not even. This thing between Elon and Trump, and when it first broke, I'm like, this is WWF. I mean, it was like a script from WWF.
Well, there's been claims made of kayfabe, but I don't know. I think the answer is simpler, and it's something that a lot of people should have seen coming. You can't have two bulls in a pasture.
Right. That also. That very much also. But it's one of those, and as far as Johnson breaking the rules and not even given 24 hours to read 1,100 pages, he's a snake. Everybody's known that for a long time. He's a snake.
Well,
and he'll try to use this to his advantage, and he doesn't care. He's for himself.
I think anybody that's trying to paint heroes and villains and what's going on right now is, by and large, missing the point. We're not playing politics as usual.
No. No, we're not.
Not to drag your people into my muck, but I legitimately do believe we are seeing the end of the American Republic.
That is why I've got you here, is because I value your opinion, and our listeners will value your opinion.
So, as far as the conversation around the deficit and that's the purported conflict, I don't think that's actually what's going on. I think anybody who is honestly engaged with the facts of the matter is aware that the deficit is never going to go away. There is going to be a default.
Mm-hmm.
So the question then is, do we spend what we need to make sure that we don't have 100 million illegals in the country when the default happens? That seems important.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because then you've got, I mean, what was the main thing that causes any kind of revolution? Famine. It's just like in prisons. The number one thing that causes riots is problems with food. Humans are humans. They're pretty basic on some things.
Well, and this may be our last shot at solving the demographic boulder that's rolling down at us with increasing speed. So I understand the urgency, and I think Stephen Miller is the one to be looking to on a lot of this. He's playing kind of a grand vizier role.
I don't know. Like I said, with Johnson pulling that stunt of not even giving them 24 hours to read 1,100 pages, and I did comment because I'm like, and I told him, it's like, look, you pulled that one straight out of Pelosi's cooch.
Well,
because that's true. I mean, I remember when they had one of those hand carts and rolled that Obama bullshit in. Oh, you got to pass it to know what's in it.
Right. And so the question then becomes, will it just be one more line on our tombstone of the things that were done to us that we refuse to do because of principles?
Yeah. Yeah.
My patience with the libertarian wing of the conservative movement is kind of done at this point.
The libertarian, as far as libertarian, the principles thereof, yes. But as far as those who they have picked for positions of power, give me a fucking break. I mean, some of those people it was just a clown show.
Well, I've come to understand and be kind of embarrassed by my libertarian leanings in my youth that the libertarian worldview is about as divorced from human nature as the communist worldview is.
It very well could be. But I mean, as far as Ron Paul was a very practical man, and I think that he was the last of the true libertarians. But even then, I don't know if it was a matter of him leaving it in the past. People are not the same today as they were 20, 30, 50 years ago.
No, that's true. And as much as I admire Ron Paul, mostly what he stacked up over his career in politics were kudos. Like, he'd never accomplished anything.
Right.
And that is kind of the hallmark of libertarian politics. They never accomplish anything.
Well, I am totally against career politicians. That's part of the root of corruption on this, because they consider presidents part-timers, and they're just going to wait them out. It's just interesting that this timing, but part of the dot connection, Elon had stated a few days ago, he said he knew that propaganda was powerful, but he didn't recognize how powerful.
Well, yeah, I've been saying for years that the people who are most in danger for propaganda are the people that think they're immune to it.
Uh-huh. He's not a stupid man at all. And I also know that he made mention the other day about Project Bluebeam. So, regardless of what they think they're doing, ultimately God is doing something.
Yes.
I mean, I have been on the Michael Heiser Exodus series again. And as far as Pharaoh and what God did with Pharaoh, there's, and we won't go into that realm of is there free will or is there not, because there is. People do have choice. There is no point in humanity with no free will.
Well, my position on that is that it's an incoherent question.
Well, if somebody has that much time that they can sit around and ponder that all day, they could go out and get a job. Gen X, a coffee slurping coming. I should have offered you a cup of coffee. Did you want a cup of coffee?
I'm alive. For the moment.
But we have some very unusual planetary alignment in all this. And some of the people that I listen to have been speaking of this. They don't know specifically what's going to happen, but they know that there will be a thing.
Yeah, that's, my pulse on the zeitgeist at the moment. It seems that most people are experiencing something similar to that. Even people that don't normally engage in the woo-woo of any variety are noticing things. Like an example that I had pointed out earlier today, there was a tweet from Mike Cernovich, who normally does not engage in that type of thing whatsoever. He's a relatively level-headed person, but even he was picking up on this. And this was yesterday.
Yeah.
And then he was looking at the events of today and saying, oh, okay.
That's what it was.
So,
we've got the solar storms. We had the eclipses there 2 years in a row that did draw and quarter. They made this huge X.
Well, and unfortunately we live in an era where we have abandoned all of the traditions that would have provided us with some ability to defend ourselves mentally in these moments.
Exactly.
And so we have no immunity from it. We have no way to recognize it and deal with it as what it is. And so it just drives people crazy.
Yeah, exactly. There were people that were already teetering. And with some of these people that, some of these substances that they put in their bodies and stuff, lots of substances, we don't know what is going to be activated. We don't. There's so many theories about everything, and it's easy to relegate it all to, some conspiracy theory, some crackpot, until the stuff is proven to be accurate. And there's been a lot of it that's been proven to be accurate.
Well, I just hope that we've got a little more hope than, you could conceive that there's some modern Noah figure in a bunker somewhere since 2019.
No, I don't think that we need those anymore. We're waiting for the return.
Well, yeah, I guess that depends on how much we mess it up in the interim.
Yeah, well, and it was interesting because I started, and with youngest kid, I don't go down some of these rabbit holes because it's pie season. These things bother him greatly.
But also, I am not as intelligent as
that's not...
you honestly give a better take on this than I would.
Well, he says just a different
I'm
kid.
very competent at making it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
To sit there and how that the sacrifice of children has always been come before some God doing something huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so in the advent of 100 years of child sacrifice via abortion, what was the intent of the sacrifice?
Right. The intent was to summon the old ones. We know that. It's what the blood sacrifice since the time of Moloch and all those. It's the same ones. Baal, all of them. Even as far as a lot of the androgyny and the trans and stuff like that, that was Baphomet. Was and is.
Have you gotten into the Saturn stuff?
No, I haven't gotten into the Saturn stuff yet.
Leave that for a separate occasion.
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of these things that had been hidden from the normies, all that is surfacing. And even if they don't want to go into those subjects, it's there.
Well, there are elements that are surfacing for people who have eyes to see. But, I think we had spoken a couple of days ago privately. The mystery schools still exist.
Oh, yes.
And the people that have been paying attention and are part of those traditions are probably the best positioned to not be destroyed by the chaos that will likely follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because that was one of the things as far as astrology, because there are specific times dark rituals have to be done. And that was the reason it's like, don't do that. But no, the rest of us to sit there, like a forecast, to sit there and go, it's going to rain today, take an umbrella, to sit there and go, whatever is in conjunction with whatever, don't drive like an idiot. Though that's the type that most people can use and use it properly. There's a book of Enoch, all that stuff. And it's in some ways we are dealing with fallen angel technology now, only it's people that are arrogant idiots that have the capability of destroying everyone.
Yes, we live through the greatest period of hubris that I think our species has ever seen. Although perhaps that's the hubris speaking.
Well, it could be. It's just as far as recorded time, we don't know how many times this has happened before.
Well, we'll keep going until we finish the work.
Yeah. But it's interesting how easily, and I think that everybody's nerves are just shot.
Yes.
And so when this happened, it was just like everybody was freaking out. And it's like, look, you do not have to get drawn into the drama. You don't have to pick a side. Because humans are humans. They've got good parts and they've got bad parts. Ultimately, look at it and see, what is God doing with this?
Well, I mean, there's some interesting historical corollaries here. People have been talking about Caesar and Pompey, or the era of the Gracchus brothers. I mean, Rome seems to be the most direct parallel.
Well, that's what has been on people's minds for how long now?
Yes.
About a decade? Because that somewhere within their cellular memory or whatever, they could feel it, they could see it. And it always had to do, Camille Paglia talked about this years ago. I heard it maybe 10, 15 years ago, her talking about that era of decadence.
Yes.
And that included these effeminate men right before the destruction of an empire.
Yes. Hedonism always leads to destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the thing about empire is that the moment they stop growing, they begin to die.
Interesting.
Which could explain some of the impetus for the interplanetary endeavors.
I think so.
If we were able to expand our territory, maybe you can get the imperial urge going for longer than a few generations.
Well, and I think it's a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And you and I have discussed before, it's like, what is the disconnect within the makeup of humans that we repeat the same mistakes over and over?
Well, it's because our nature doesn't change. And our nature informs our actions. And most of the time we do a post hoc justification. You know, we rationalize after the fact, but I think a significant proportion of human behavior is just driven by instinct, fundamentally.
Mm-hmm. And how that is guided or misguided.
Yes.
It's an interesting time to be alive, and the fact that we are entering into a new age.
Yes.
This age of Aquarius, which those people in the 60s, they lied. That song, it was a lie.
Well, the direction that I would point people in is that of the medieval scholastics, because I think, I mean, there are people in different traditions that have figured out lesser or greater parts of this truth, but I think it was the medieval scholastics that got the whole picture together, that understood that the only way that you are able to change anything about the nature of human behavior is through the cultivation of virtue.
Right.
And that's not even a recognized concept in our society anymore.
No, I think that the recognized concept has to do with an expansion of consciousness, which also came out of the 60s. And what they're trying to do is, you know, with the psychedelics and stuff like that, oh, I've had this amazing experience. No, you cheated, and you've seen something that you're not supposed to see in the way that you've seen it.
Yes, the phrase that I learned that I plagiarized from young, be wary of unearned wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's just sharing. It's just sharing. Because
I take some pride in that we reach the same conclusion independently.
That's an amazing thing. And it's like, it seems like some of the movers and shakers were very open about using the psychedelics and the expansion of their consciousness. Just because they were there and they saw something does not mean that they understood what they were seeing or who or what they were interacting with.
Right. I mean, psychedelics can give you access to a level of cognition that is not normative to most people's daily experiences, but it's not the only way to have those kinds of experiences. And if you don't predispose yourself to being able to handle what that does to you, it can break your mind.
Well, it's like you were talking about the mystery schools and stuff, and as far as the shamans and teaching the next group that did that. It wasn't not everybody is born to be a shaman.
Right. Well, and, you know, we live in the age of empiricism, where it's viewed that, you know, objective material ways of knowing are the only legitimate ways of knowing. But the traditions that had other methods for knowledge, other epistemologies, they haven't died out. They just continue doing their work quietly in the background, as they have always done.
No, and that's...
But unfortunately, the majority of people, because they don't advertise, are unaware of them, pretend they don't exist, or don't lack the requisite knowledge to even entertain the question.
Right. And there's a lot of things that people just... that used to be common knowledge that has been lost. And that was always one of the things that bothered me, even as far as talking about the paranormal and supernatural, people going, oh, don't talk about that. Well, if you don't talk about it, then others don't know about it, and that knowledge becomes lost.
Yes. I mean, I think it would certainly help us to break out of this mold that we've formed around ourselves if all of the people who have had experiences were open enough to say that they had had experiences, even just like that little, right? If people were able to see just how broad the scope is amongst their fellow humans of people that have had these kinds of encounters, it would probably change perceptions.
Sure.
Or maybe people would come to think that the majority of people are crazy because, again, hubris.
Well, and I think that's what we're going through right now when you have the majority of people that are insane, the ones that are sane. It goes back to Plato's cave. You know? So if you are one of the sane ones, you have to sort of watch your ass.
Yes. Especially because there are elements, and there's kind of like a Gnostic flavor to this, which I'm not a big fan of. But it's
No, I'm
true.
not either.
The people who know more than is commonly known in society guard that knowledge, some of them quite jealously. And so the trouble that you can find yourself in if you figure out something that other people haven't figured out is that might put a target on your back.
It can. It very much can. And I think that that's, even with this, with Trump and Elon, going back full circle to that, because it does. And they're very much aware that all this is global. And every nation right now, my God, it's just a powder keg.
Yes, well, it has been for a long time. I will spare you my long and exhaustive explanation of the false peace after the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but just suffice it to say that the conflicts didn't go away. Just
Right.
the means for resolving them became untenable.
I did appreciate the meme where Putin was sitting there, kind of that little sly smile, and he's like, "Do you want me to come and negotiate between the two of you?"
Well, I mean, it's not a good look, certainly, but it is very human.
I really believe that there is something more than just surface level. There always is. Even if the ones involved do not understand.
I mean, there's elements of this that just reek of standard celebrity drama. It just so happens that in this case, it's between the richest man on the planet and the most powerful man on the planet. So, you know,
And
stakes are a
as
little
far
higher.
as, oh, well, I'm going to pull your contract. Okay, well, I'm going to pull down the, whatever it was, Starlink thing, Golden Dome thing,
He's going to
whatever.
deconstruct the Dragon capsule. Yeah, so the thing about that, somebody I think had said something to this effect, but that was very much like a BPD girlfriend move. Like, oh, if you do that, I'll kill myself. Oh, okay.
Well, that was what Trump had tweeted out something about. I want my records back, including the ABBA ones that you promised I could keep. Like I said, this is just very much WWF.
Yes. And it could be performative. If it is, it's a high-risk performance. But
Everything's high risk right now. I mean, my
Yes.
God, this bullshit with Ukraine and Putin, and I mean, then as far as the Koreas that
Yes.
you had whoever it was that may or may not have won legitimately there in South Korea.
Well, South Korea is about 15 years ahead of the U.S. along the same pipeline towards collapse. They kind of took all of the mistakes that we made in our history and did them in a very compressed time frame. So you've been able to see the consequences in the course of like a single generation in a lot of cases.
Oh, and I think that Japan had been having some problems also as far
Yes.
as their...
Slower than Korea, still faster than us. Korea will be the first country to have a major population collapse.
Yeah. And it's like, and then you've got, China doing whatever China be doing, which I don't know that anybody truly knows.
Well, that's because, here in the West, by and large, we think in 5-minute time frames, but China, for all its faults, still thinks in terms of centuries.
Yes. Yes, they do. And that was one of their people a week or so ago had said something about the 5,000 years of history.
Yeah.
And descendants of dragons, let's not forget that.
They've got a longer view. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that can frustrate us in the West about dealing with China is they have no sense of urgency about anything.
No.
Because they don't care if it happens now or 50 years from now or 150 years from now. They know they're still going to be there.
Yeah, it's the same thing with career politicians and Pelosi. I swear to God, she's going to be there,
And so, as far as... I think it's more endemic to the ethnic group than the form of government in China never really changes the way their people behave. It's a matter of them positioning themselves for the opportune moment.
Yeah.
That's always been the way they've done business.
Yeah, because there are differences. I mean, some of it it's not just cultural. It is genetic. There are differences, and people don't want to hear that. They want to crucify you if you dare breathe that. Ask Robert Seffer.
Now, the interesting thing to add here, if we're talking about China specifically, is despite the communist revolutionaries' attempt to wipe out large segments of the tradition and culture that predated them, the concept of the mandate of heaven is kind of like a blood memory for the Chinese people. And so, in this era of chaos, and we're talking about extrinsic chaos at this point, right? Like it's causing internal effects, but what is going on is out there.
Yes.
Right? So whether it's the solar weather or whether we have earthquakes or tsunamis or freak storms, whatever it is, the Chinese people are uniquely susceptible to the mental effects of calamity. So, as comfortable as Xi might be right now, he's one earthquake away from a revolution and being deposed.
Yeah.
That's how it always is for them.
Well, when you think that the emperor or whoever it comes from God.
Yes.
And
if something terrible happens on your watch, you've lost the mandate.
Uh-huh.
You must be taken down and the new leader must be installed.
Interesting. My God, it's all so fascinating. Terrifying, but fascinating.
Yeah. There's the differences between different groups of people are very interesting, and that's why it frustrates me when people want to flatten all of that into some neutral brown blob.
Well, that's because that one of the first institutions to fall was academia. And that's where the cancer has spread. That's,
That's
Khrushchev
we made the mistake
told
of
us.
allowing the French philosophers to have decision-making power.
Well, it's the French. What did you expect?
That we can blame all of our woes in the West today on the Enlightenment. I feel very confident in that assertion.
Yes, and they definitely indeed have farted in our general direction.
Perhaps I should write an essay detailing exactly how that happened.
That would be
People
wonderful.
will take my word for it. That's how it happened.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for coming up here and discussing these things with me. I would hope that you would be more available in the future, if you would please.
Take it a day at a time.
Well, that's okay, but it's a matter of intention. So, everybody's having the paranormal and the supernatural. Whether you realize it or not, you can go through it blind, but you still go and go through it. You can find us on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. I'm over there on X. Youngest kid is over there on X. Oldest kid is over there on X. He doesn't post that much. He's sitting there in ninja mode.
Waiting for my moment.
That's okay, because I think a lot are. And that's another tension that you can feel.
Oh, yeah.
It's been building for a very long time.
I am, whatever you make of this, I feel like my position is representative of
Very many.
a lot of men in the West.
Yes, because you all have been under spiritual attack for a very long time.
And that's the interesting thing about chaos. Chaos is movement.
Mm-hmm. It is. And
Chaos
that is,
change.
in Scripture, that is represented by Leviathan, that it is the spirit of chaos. So, prayers. Everybody be praying all the time. Pray for us. Pray for one another. Know that you are loved. Treat other people the way you would like to be treated. And Lord willing, we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.
Bye.